Right. So I was saying that the two topics that we have this month, one is recipe illustration, for which we just need a book, nothing extra. And the other one is book jacket design, for which we'll need some extra papers, maybe some glue. Yeah, I suppose that's it. So if you have just loose drawing sheets and glue, then we can do the book jacket design today. Do you have that?
I don't have glue.
You don't have glue. All right. Then let's do recipe illustration today, and then maybe you can get glue for the class in 2 weeks, and I'll put a reminder out. Okay, just give me a minute. All right, for recipe illustration, we would be exploring what's called layout design, how to create a layout using text and pictures and connect the two. And there are several different compositions that we can try. So we have three elements over here. One is illustration, and second is actually two elements, let's say. One is illustration, second is text. And in the text, we also have some hierarchy. We have a title, we probably would have a description, and then we have the method and procedure for the recipe. Normally, this is standard. So, in how many ways can we put together a layout to convey or communicate this that can be more about, since it's illustration, it has to be more about grabbing your attention. Conventionally, a recipe is actually just in text. You write down the measurement of stuff and put together in a pot, and it's done. But when you are illustrating it, it changes everything. Or even with photography, it brings in another element altogether. So there are several things that one can do, some of which we are going to explore today. So I'm hoping that at the end of the class, you have some kind of inspiration to illustrate some basic recipes. All right, so here we have layout design. And this layout can be made for recipes, for a travel page. What else? So in any kind of layout, first, it's a matter of figuring out all the elements that are going to go into it. So you have image, title, and body. So all of these can have different kinds of, again, several other qualities to this. So one, you can have a full page image here. or you can have half or part page. And then you can have a cutout. So I will explain to you what all this means. As far as the text is concerned, both of them should pretty much have the same qualities. One is font style. So what kind of lettering you would use? Second would be font size. Placement. And in placement, you might also have orientation. And last would be color. Color, texture. So these are all the considerations that we have to ponder upon and take certain creative decisions about. Now, after all of this, this is what we tend to focus on most important. But there's also something we also need to think about the background. In the beginning, we just tend to use a regular drawing paper for the background, but that's not the only one. So you can have, of course, you have your drawing paper. But then you can also have colored paper. You can have textured paper. And you can have others. Now, I will explain others towards the end. Just remind me in case I forget. Huh? Now, many times when we make a layout design, it is going to be in a book more often than not. But it can also be a single page. It could also be a poster. But let's try layouts in books first. Let's make 6 rectangles which look like an open book. Now we're going to make some options using the various image types that we have. So let's start first with the cutout design. A cutout is when you just have a simple, say you have a bowl of soup or a salad or something. So you will make an illustration that is where you will draw your bowl. And you'll have the salad over here. But there's nothing around it. It's a regular paper. You don't show a backdrop, nothing. This is the easiest illustration you can make of a serving bowl in which you have your food. The next thing you can do is put your text. So you might be able to put a text here. And then it's about text, body text. So in body text also, there are 2-3 different variations. One standard is you write the ingredients on one side of a column and you write the method on the second side on a 2-column layout. So fairly simple, fairly standard, easy for readability. Now these elements we can toss around the same things and make all sorts of different compositions. So how about we, one second, I'll get a different pen. Now, just if we turn this upside down, then we have the title over here, ingredients over here, and method over here. And depending upon how much space we need, we can put the bowl right here or maybe even put it a little off center. And instead of just making the bowl, we could make a few ingredients over here. Okay. Chitra, when you're drawing, try to hold your book with your left hand. Huh?
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll strain your shoulder too much.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Now, again, we can toss these things even further and try something unconventional. Suppose we make the title on the side. Make the design of the bowl in the center. And maybe also write something about the recipe. It's not only the ingredients, it's about maybe there's a story behind it. And then make a 2-column layout in which you will write the method.
So what does that mean, the cutout image?
So the image is, you don't have anything beyond it. So it's just a picture of a bowl with food in it.
Okay. Meaning I didn't understand how that's different from the full page or half page.
Right. So I'm getting there.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's leave this last one. Let me explain what I mean by now half page image. So in a half page, you can have the same bowl over here, but you could also have stuff around it. So maybe you have this placed on a table and you have more ingredients. So the difference between the one on top and the one over here is that you adorn it a lot more such that this whole half page is used up. And then you can have the title like this. And even that is illustrated. So it's not just cut over here. You could probably have a tablecloth. And then you would probably have some kind of clouds or backdrop. So the half of the page is illustrated, fully illustrated. And you have the title also over here. And then you have the rest of the elements. Now we can turn this around and put the ingredients, the illustration at the bottom and do a similar thing. You have a nice display of all the ingredients with the bowl nestled inside that. And you might also want to try a different kind of illustrated title so it can be more fun. That goes for all the titles. They don't have to be boring.
Aditya, I remember like last year we have done volume 2 at this time only.
Yeah, that's why I thought that this year also we can make recipes. I'm going to show it to Chitra later. She's not seen it.
It's almost 1 year.
It is, yeah. So, yeah, so again, this can be illustrated like that. And you can also find different ways of writing the recipe itself. So you could illustrate the ingredients, especially if there aren't too many. And then you could create something like this. Now, this could fall somewhere between a full page illustration or half page illustration, depending upon how heavily you illustrate it. And also how creatively you make the lettering. But essentially, we've illustrated the title and we have illustrated half of the page. Now, like we've divided the page in half, the top half and the bottom half, we can also divide it vertically. So we could make something like this. And here we can add a little dynamism to our illustration by showing the ingredients floating in the air. And we could also play around with the title. So instead of keeping the title very straight and standard, you could add some fun to that as well. And make everything be tossed around. So whenever you're making an illustrated recipe, look at all the elements that you can play around with. Oh, Shalini is joining now. Hi, Shalini.
Hi, Aditi. Very, very sorry.
Oh, it's okay. I thought maybe you weren't going to be able to join. So let me bring you up to speed.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are doing layout design today. And we have taken up the task of studying recipe illustration in a book. So what kind of elements would you need to create an illustrated recipe? So I'm just going through a few variables, and we are exploring different kinds of layouts, just combinations of things put in different ways, so that we can create some kind of a designed page. Okay, so all the text and all, it's pretty self-explanatory. There isn't too much rocket science to it. So what I'll suggest to you is make these 6 boxes the way you'll see, and just start with the box that I am doing next. And then maybe when you watch the recording, then you can fill up the remaining. All right? Okay, and if you have any questions, please ask me. We might have answered that before, but I'm happy to answer your question.
Thank you, and so sorry again.
No problem. All right. So just a little recap. These are the various elements that we are considering. So we have image and we have text, title text and body text. These are the 3 different types of images we are considering: a full page illustration, half page, and a cutout. And these are the aspects of text. You have font style, size, placement, orientation, color, texture. And all of this can be on varied backgrounds. So you have regular drawing paper like this. You might have colored paper, textured paper, and some other options, which I will explain to you later. So these design options are using a cutout image. A cutout is when you draw only the image, you don't draw any background, and around that you write or you place text. This is a half page illustration where half, or sometimes you can do a third or a quarter of 3/4, where everything is illustrated. So there is hardly any place for regular text over there. Sometimes you can also include the title text into that part of the illustration. You could also split that, illustrate the title separately, and illustrate the presentation of your recipe, or sometimes the ingredients, but in an entire space. So difference between this and this is that the background is still the same as the rest of the page. Over here, the background will also be illustrated. Okay, now here we have split the page in half horizontally, and here we are going to split it vertically. But I'm not going to repeat the same on this side. There are other ways in which you can split the page as well. So you could do something like this, perhaps. You could make your bowl over here. You can have your tossed salad here. And then you could also show that this is on, say, a table. And the table is sideways. It's at an angle. It does not always have to be vertical or horizontal. And you could probably have some ingredients over here. You could probably have like a flower pot or whatever. And then you can have a nice gingham texture to make it look festive. Anything, whatever you feel inspired to make.
My God. I would never have thought this could be part of an art class. It's so nice. Layout is
So last year around this time, we came up with a recipe booklet from all the students. And I'm going to show that to you later. Hopefully this year also we can do that. And you can illustrate and contribute your own recipes. It's amazing. Archana was just talking about that. Okay, so we can write the text here as well. And then, of course, we can write our usual stuff. So you have your ingredients.
Yeah.
and you have your method. So this is where half page is consumed. Now, when it comes to a full page layout, there are two options. One option is when you make a full page illustration on one page and write the recipe on the other page. So it's a spread. We make a spread for one recipe. Now, for let's say if you're going to make something like a salad niçoise or something, a niçoise salad, which is south of France, you could create a whole page with that. So you have, usually that salad is made in a platter. So you could have a nice big platter. And you can have, it also has a way in which all of these ingredients are displayed almost radially. So it's a very pretty looking salad. Then you have all this tuna in the center. And then you have olives and all of that.
Oh,
And
nice.
then for the rest of the page, you can do all sorts of things. You could probably, you could show a map of France. Oh, Chitra, you would be great at this. Chitra teaches French, so she'd be able to do this really well. Then you can also show maybe some bottles of wine. You could show nice crusty bread. So anything, you can just add all sorts of things. You could show maybe a seaside. And maybe some lemons. So this whole page becomes almost like a travel page. And you can make any amount of illustration. You could draw people in it. You could draw what else, depending upon whatever you are drawing. And you could also include the title over here, or you could make a very nice illustrated lettering. And then make some of those elements over here as well. And write your text. Now, this is a nice format if you want to make like a book of your own recipes. Say, for example, you have traveled a lot and you've collected a whole lot of recipes. You can start creating these kind of travel pages with those recipes. Even if you have not traveled a lot, but you are the kind of foodie who makes food from all over the world. Like I have a friend who apparently now she stays in Hong Kong, but she often says how she and her friends get together and they have these international food festivals. So they look for recipes online and they all just do a potluck of recipes from a particular region. So they do something like Middle Eastern, Irani food, or Ethiopian food, or African food, something that they will just put together and bring it. And nobody knows that how it normally tastes. They just have picked up recipes, found the ingredients, and done it. But imagine if you're going to have an event like this and everybody is an artist and you are going to make an illustrated booklet for every such gathering. It would be amazing. What a keepsake that would make for a whole year. So I sometimes feel when you have the ability to illustrate, you think of all these ideas with the rest of your activities as well.
That's true.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now, the other thing that we can also do is within the page, also illustrate. Not we can do a full page illustration, and we can include the text into that full page illustration as well. So say, for example, I'm making an apple pie and this is how the finished pie looks. And I don't have to make the whole background like that, but I could make something like this. I might have a coffee cup next to it. But the recipe, I can make it in illustrated form. So I could draw my apples and write something about that. How many apples, then you cut them up into what type, and then you take a saucepan and then you make that apple sauce out of it. In that, whatever you put, either you can draw it or you write it. And then you can make the dough. So you can make a bag of flour, some water, eggs, whatever you need. Not eggs, actually. I don't use eggs. And then how you're going to arrange them. And then you can also make the oven.
Wow.
So the whole thing is illustrated. Now, I am this kind of thinker. Usually I'm so spoiled. Even I can, there is some recipe in front of me and it's got text on it. More often than not, I'll draw a picture of it just to understand what they're trying to say. Because I think so much in pictures that, and it's much quicker in pictures, at least for me. The measurements and all I can pretty much understand, but then steps I get very confused. First do this, then do that. But the moment you make it into pictures, okay, these are 5 things I have to do. And then at so and so degrees, I bake it and it should be done. And really speaking, you won't need more than this. So
Wow.
you can then make a nice title as well. And even when it comes to titles, you don't need to write the usual apple pie. You can make it euphemistic. You could write something like as easy as pie, apple pie, or something like that. And because you're trying to make it easy as well, it is, you're trying to say in words what you've drawn in pictures. That is also possible. Now, there are sometimes recipes where you don't even need text at all, other than maybe just the title. So you should be able to do that as well. Like, for example, if you're making lemonade, you could just draw all of the ingredients. You could have maybe 2 lemons, 1 spoon of sugar, 1 spoon of salt, and you have a glass of water, and then you have your lemonade made. So depending upon how many glasses you need. So you don't really need to make any text. And you could focus on making the title decorative. Yeah, so it's all up to you. All options are available. So here, now the last one, if you want to fill this up. Now Chitra, since you know what a cutout, half page, full page illustration would be, one last thing we can do over here is also make something like this. Your title can come at the bottom. Your picture can come somewhere here. And then you have your text over here. Or in 2 columns, however you want it. So these are again just a few options, but they are quite a few, and you can do a lot with this. Now, as far as backgrounds are concerned, when you have something like a salad, which is very colorful, then using a regular drawing paper makes sense. But say you have something like a French onion soup. I don't know why I'm thinking French food. This is thanks to Chitra, I think. French onion soup is made with white onions and butter and maybe cheese, but everything is bland and white. There isn't anything colorful. Eventually, it becomes delicious. That's different. But the ingredients are all just so non-colored. Then in that case, it makes sense to color your background because it is still an illustration and your illustration must grab eyeballs. It cannot, or when you start making it on white, it just does not have that impact. So that's when you change the color. Sometimes just changing the color might not work. So then you can also make it textured. Now, in terms of texture, drawing on textured paper becomes a little difficult. So then you can think about collages. So you just draw different types of things, cut them out, and you can place them on some festive paper. Like maybe, for example, if you are making sandwiches, a sandwich recipe, you could really actually make cutouts of all the different things that are going to go in the sandwich. So you make an illustration of a bread. Then you make the illustration of lettuce, which is lying flat. And then a tomato, maybe some meat or whatever. So you can actually place it one on top of the other and then display it out like cards and keep that on maybe some tartan printed paper or something like that. And then you can take a photograph of that. So here we are adding one more element. It does not always have to be restricted to just drawing what you can, because when it comes to photography, especially since our cameras are now literally in our back pocket, you should try and expand illustration into other mediums as well. And photography is the easiest next allied medium that you can choose. So technically, it's still an illustrated recipe because you aren't putting real stuff on it. You're taking illustrations, but it can create a very interesting twist to the illustration when you add photography.
That's true.
So then that allows you to use a lot of textured papers also. And then the last part, the others part, if you can do this, if you can take photography also as part of your tools, then in the others, you can take any kind of background. It's not restricted to paper anymore. So you could put it on fabric. If you're going to draw an illustration maybe of a layered cake or something, you can place it on some very nice lace. That would look interesting. Or if you're going to make it, I guess, what else can we do? Say an Indian thali. Then you could have some saris or something as a backdrop on which again you can create this cutout. So there can be lots of things that become your background. In fact, you could also try placing this on glass. So imagine a certain backdrop that you have. Either you have a beautiful building or you just have a blue sky and you want to create the feel of a picnic. You can just take all these things and place them on your glass, shoot a picture with the beautiful blue sky in the background, and then digitally you could write the recipe on that, and that becomes a very nice keepsake also. So I know that this second step can be a little technical because that would involve having the right software, even camera, and then doing a little bit of digital jugaad, but it is there. So if we can do that in our regular software also. You don't need high-end software, but it does take you a step further. But then it also gives you an opportunity to do hajar other things.
Right.
These are the various options that you can try out. Now, One thing about layout also, or even recipe design, not layout, is fonts, handwritten fonts. Now I have written a whole book on handwritten fonts, and I'm going to bring that out so I can show you what you can do. That is available for purchase with me, and also now it's available on Amazon. So I'm going to send you the link to that also if you want to download the Kindle version.
Perfect.
Okay, I just got a whole stack of books.
You've written all of them?
Well, I have been instrumental in the writing of all of them. So this was last year's book, the illustrated cookbook of amateur artists. This was done by the students last year.
Wow. So colorful.
Yeah, and these are all their personal recipes. The
Oh,
only
nice.
question I had put was, this is a recipe that you should be able to make. If someone were to call you and ask you like, for example, in this, do you shell the prawns or do you keep the prawns on the shell? You should be able to answer that person without saying, oh, wait a minute, I'll ask my mom. So this recipe was illustrated by, I think he was a 11 or 12-year-old boy. He was very interested in sending the recipe, but I told him, only if you can make the recipe will you send it. So that way, then he got to learn also. He said, I've not made it, but I stood when my mother was making it. So I know everything that goes in it.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so now you see what I mean.
Mm.
The layout designs that we have done, there's a little bit of all of it. And of course, variations, like I told you, these are all starting points. But depending upon what the recipe calls for, you're free to do whatever you want. Here again, there's hardly any text.
These are
Lovely.
mine.
These are yours, no, Archana?
These three are mine. Yeah, this
1, 2,
one
and which was the other? Huh. No, this one is yours as well, right?
and the other one also. Just be after that.
This one is
Yeah.
also yours. You know what? Last year I forgot to write the names of the artist.
Mhm.
See this? It's now, many of the things you might think conventionally might be considered as mistakes. There is a mistake here. And then here the text is far too close to the butter. But after it is written and finished, it all looks like part of the illustration. It's fun to look at it. It doesn't look like a mistake at all. Even over here, it's just so many things, color that's gone out. I didn't photo retouch any of this. I just left it like that because there was such energy in this.
Love the blob of butter.
Yeah. Look at this. This was very intense, very beautifully made.
Yeah.
Interesting recipes.
Yeah. So these books are also available if you want to purchase. I'll share the information about this. This was the second year. This was the first year we made it. And this was a result of a lettering workshop that I had. I think it was a weekend workshop in which recipe illustration was one example of where you could use the lettering. So that entire group got very excited and said, you know what, we want to just make this book. So then I threw it open to the rest of the students also, I think, and then they sent out some stuff. Now, thanks to these two books, one of the students, oh, where is the book? They're all the same. Wait, I'll show you. I have two of the same books. But this was, so this lady, Alka, she wrote her own book, and I think I'll look for it in a bit. But another student who got inspired by Alka wrote her own recipe book, all about Marathi food.
Nice.
And this is also available online. It's called Tikhat Meat Gur Masala.
So Aditi, how do you like keep it online? Like you need a publisher to publish these, or like how is the process?
No, we self-published.
Okay.
Self-publishing is very easy.
Mhm.
You just need to then take the effort for distribution, finding the right people, but you don't have to wait for a publisher to okay it. The process is that there is an organization called Raja Ram Mohan Roy department or something of 1 second of ISBN, I think, for the ISBN number. So you have to apply. It is free, completely free. Then they will give you your ISBN number. It takes about a month to maybe 6 weeks. And once you get the ISBN number, you're free to put it on anything. You have to send them the cover details. You have to send them the cover details before the ISBN is issued. Then they will check that that name is not clashing with somebody else's existing book, and certain other details regarding verification of printing and all sorts of things. And then you just print it and publish it, and then you can publish it everywhere. And I have someone, actually, Mruga from PMGM. She found out someone who can also put the books online. So he helped, he knows all the ins and outs. So you just get that done from him. It's even that can be done if you have the time and tenacity, it can be done. Amazon Kindle is very easy to upload books to.
Okay.
Okay. So these were the 3 books, and I think I'll find Alka's book, but in the meantime, I'll show you my books now. So this was a book that I made for a friend who this is their book club, and she wanted, whenever they meet, they usually, there's some food or the other. These are some of the books that they've read last year. Very, very nice ladies. This is their chai masala. This is the chai that they have. So I decided to start the book with the chai masala, and then each of the participants has sent out a recipe. So we wrote a little bit about the participant and the recipe. Now something like this, again, you don't really need a recipe for everything. It's all very simplified.
This is lovely.
It's a nice keepsake, no?
Yeah, beautiful.
And then a few notes, and that's it. I had very little time for this. That's why you can see how I plagiarized the William Morris design.
Wow.
And this one is my own. So here, this is the one that I was talking about, is now available on Amazon. And it's got maybe 125 options of fonts, of embellishments, some simple decorations. So many of these are built on the few rules that I've shared right in the beginning, how to start off with creating simple letters, and then what kind of effects you can have. So all sorts of effects like that, depending upon what you are decorating. And then also a sample of how they look once they are illustrated in all these different options.
Mhm.
So to start you off on lettering, I'm just going to take a new page because lettering is very close to me.
Aditi, can I just ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
You said design options using a cutout image. So when you talk about a cutout image, it basically just like literally means that you have like half and half of something, or can you just repeat that? What
Yes.
you
So
mean by using a cutout image?
a cutout is, imagine that you have a scene from which only a picture of a bowl has been cut out. You just draw that part. So you're not really cutting it out, but you just omit everything else or drawing anything else around it. So you just draw one single element, yeah. Or maybe just one ingredient or something around it. Which is what we would normally draw. We won't really draw scenes or half page and all. Everything else is a little extra.
Thank you.
All
And
right.
that love that you use,
Sorry.
using a very nice pen to draw.
Oh, this is this one. This is the Micron pen.
It's a
So
pen to draw.
yeah, it is a drawing pen, and this is it's there in our list of materials. I don't know if I sent it to you, but I'll maybe I will. I'll just explain what's good about this.
Thank you.
So this is a drawing pen, and it comes in various thicknesses. So you have a 0.2, a 0.5, and also this is archival ink, which means that it's waterproof. So you can draw with this, and then you can also paint over, and the ink does not budge. You can pick this up as a set of 5 or 6 or 10 different pens. You can choose the one with 5. So you'll have a 005, 01, 2, 5, and 8, and then maybe 1.4, or a brush pen. There are some various options available. So I normally recommend buying a 02 and 05. That's good enough. Any thinner than this, you don't need unless you're doing a lot of detailed work, which we won't. And any thicker than this, then it becomes a little overwhelming. So 2 and 5, and maybe at best a 08 is good enough. You don't need to buy the whole kit in the beginning also.
They're all available here.
Yeah. In a good stationery store.
Okay.
Should be. Many not so good regular stationery stores also keep these pens.
Thank you.
Most welcome. Okay, now lettering guidelines. Now, the difference between lettering that we make for an illustration and our handwriting is, one, lettering is done I guess it's a more how can I put it? Let's start with slowly.
More conscious, no?
Right, that's a good word. When we say conscious about what we're writing, it is about a few things. One is consistency of letters. Then you have spacing. And then you have baseline. Normally, when we are writing our hand lettering, handwriting goes all over the place. It is more about quickly jotting down something. And that too applies to people who still write by hand. Most people these days, I think, just whenever they need to just sign on some stuff. But other than that, hardly even hold a pen anymore. So we write it slower, more consciously, keeping in mind consistency, space, and baseline. So baseline is just the line on which you seat all the letters. The baseline more often than not is straight, but sometimes can also curve. It can go round, but you maintain a certain baseline. So you write letters in such a way that you are conscious of a baseline. So you have given a thought to what is the height of the letter. You try to maintain that height, maintain the integrity of the letter form. I'll come to that in a bit. And also the space in between so that it looks nice and even. And you can see the baseline, even though it is not drawn. And one rule that I must tell you is when you are drawing in a picture and in that you're going to write text, never underline the text. Most kids I've seen underline the text because they want to give that importance. They think this is the title, and we've been taught in school when you make a title, make an underline. But that is true when you have a whole page of text. When this is probably the only text or the most prominent of very little text around, underlining does not draw any more special attention to it. But that underline just disturbs the rest of the illustration because that is an element and it will contribute something to the illustration. So just remember that, never underline in a recipe or in an illustration. Now, suppose you want to change the baseline and you want to write it like this in a curve on the page. So in that case, what you do is each letter sits on the page on the at a perpendicular angle, always. So it's good to write letters upright when you're writing them on a curve instead of choosing slanted lettering. Slanted just doesn't work. It's very painful. So suppose you want to write cheesecake. Each letter will tilt just a little bit. Only the letters which are right on top will appear vertical. And you continue to maintain the space between the letters. So this is how you're conscious of the baseline.
You're saying you still write the letters straight, like you don't
Straight,
really.
perpendicular to the curve. So if I look at just this much and I see a line, it should look as if this line is straight and the letter is sitting straight on top of it. And then the same thing for everything. Now, what are the different things that we can do with letters themselves? You have the height. Title text will always be bigger than your normal text. Then you have the width or the weight. Weight refers to the thickness of the line. Sometimes it can be universally thick or it can be variable, but that is a consideration. And then you have the width.
Nice. Didn't imagine letters back then.
Then you have the slant. At what angle does your letter slant to? And then you have serif or non-serif. At least we can start with these. There can be more aspects to lettering, but we can just stick with this and come up with so many different combinations. So if we play around with height, we can have letters that are taller rather than wider. So you have this kind of daddy long legs kind of lettering. It's here somewhere, I think. Then you have letters which are wider. So they could be just wider than normal. They don't have to be really wide, but just shorten this and it becomes a different kind of letter. Then if you want weight, then you could have a letter which is thicker. So I'm just taking the same pen and making the line slightly thicker. So here we have height, width, and weight. Now we can create a slanting letter. And we can write a letter with serifs. So a serif is this additional part on several letters that you find. And serifs were used in, well, they were part of the feature of lettering in Roman letters, because Roman letters were made using what's called a burin, B-U-R-I-N. It is, it's like a little awl, which has got a like a semicircular tube-like thing, which is used to carve out letters. So when you carve out letters and also when you chisel out letters, if you make a very sharp corner, there's a chance that that corner is going to buckle. Sharp corners don't really work well in stone sculpture. But if you just extend that corner a little bit, it provides more stability to that corner. So then that became a way in which they would chisel out the letters so that you had a long line on which you would have a slimmer upright stroke, so on and so forth. And all these letters started becoming very, well, they lasted longer and longer. So those serifs then became a kind of characteristic of those letters. And they, just through our psychic continuity, we often grant a certain formality to letters which have serif. Nowadays, we don't really need serif. So the letters that we see around in the world are sans serif, because sans serif are easier to read. Sans is just not with, so, or without. So letters without the serif, and they just make the letters a little more simpler and readability is improved. So if you are out in public spaces, you will see a font called Helvetica. And nowadays Optima also, people have found that Optima is the new Helvetica, which in various forms, whether it's bold or whether it's thin, you can see it much clearly and very quickly. Now, when we are illustrating, we don't need simplified fonts, and we don't even need to focus so much on readability, because a person who has the time to look at an illustration should have the time to spend and figure out what you're trying to write. So don't look at readability as the number one task for text when you're making an illustration. They have to be beautiful. Now, if we take all these things and we just mix them up and we say, okay, I want something that is tall and slanted, you get this. But you can also have something short and slanted, or wide and slanted, or wide with a certain width, or tall with a certain width, or with serif, without serif. So there's all sorts of options. And then you can come up with all of these simplified fonts. Where are they? Yeah, something like this. And then you can also give them an outline, so you get more options. So here's a thick line option of a serif font, and these are the different variables that you get. So this is just a monoline serif. Here you have a shaded and serifed lettering. So really you can do all sorts of stuff with it. These are outlines to something like this, a thick monoline. Right. Now,
So it goes into books and things. Oh, lettering, you thought about
yeah,
it.
yeah, there is a lot you can do with this. So when you are designing a page, you should make something like that. Make a thumbnail image of what you want to make and try different options. Then on a separate page, try different text options, because you need to figure out what works, how much space you're going to need. So say if I'm making apple pie, should I write apple pie like this, or should I write something more fun? Oh, I forgot a serif on the I, on the E. So I can make a combination of things. I can do this, and I can write. The moment I make it bold, you will see apple and pie with the same amount of importance. And you'll see that here my baseline has shifted a little bit. So my trick usually is to make something like a shadow on one side. If I find that this shift is very disturbing, then I will just make a rather extended shadow to some of the letters. And it works. Or at least it distracts enough. So what I'm going to encourage you to do now is take any old ID that you have. You don't need to buy anything for this. You will have some annual ID or something from somewhere. It will have lines on it. Let it be. Try and illustrate a few recipes on that. First, you might want to just write the recipe on one side, because it helps. That is the part that you know. Then just get onto Pinterest and find someone who has made that recipe, just the pictures. So they will have presentation ideas. And using that as your guide, start drawing pictures. So just draw like stick figure, like basic images of those recipes. So you get your hand and eye accustomed to the idea of drawing food. Then to that itself, using whatever tools you have at hand, whether you've got colors, crayons, sketch pens, whatever, just color that up and keep it simple. One thing you don't want to do is make the illustrations look too realistic. If we wanted realistic images, we would have clicked photographs. But keep them, even if they're crude, they will look engaging. You could also do another thing. Once you're a little confident, you could take drawing paper and cut it into maybe the size of sheet that the diary is, and make the illustration in the drawing paper and then paste it in the diary also. That also looks very nice. That can be one way of making your own illustrated recipe book. Okay, so give this a shot, because unless you practice it, you won't know what shortcomings you have. Like only when these girls, Alka and Mruga, started making their books, they realized that they did not want to, or they did not know how to make certain things like metallic objects. And then I spent some time with Mruga making metallic objects. I spent some time with Alka making items that were without color, like salt and sugar. How do you make it look like that? So what kind of ideas will work? So these questions must arise. I don't expect you to know how to do it, but I would expect you to want to know a range of things that you would like to make, so that we can hopefully come up with this year's volume 3 as well. Okay. All right. Any questions so far?
I do.
No, thanks. I will need to leave now because I have to get to my exam center. So,
Yes. Okay.
all right.
Yeah. Bye,
Bye.
Chitra.
Bye.
Yes, Shalini.
Send us a picture, Aditi, of what we did on the first page, because I kind of joined late, so I haven't got enough of it.
Yeah, I'll send it right away. And hopefully the recording also should be available in another half an hour or an hour or so.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so
So
much.
next week, I'm traveling. We won't have class next week. And that would, I think, take us into August. So we'll do 2 extra classes sometime in August, maybe on a Monday, but I'll just take a call. I'll ask everyone when they're free and do an extra class, a couple of extra classes, so we make up for what we've missed out in July. And in the meantime, if you can just gather together a few items. One is tracing paper, a little bit of tape, glue, and extra drawing paper as well. So there are 2 modules that remain. One is book jacket design, and the second one is the second part of print making or print design.
You said tracing paper, tape, and
Glue and additional drawing paper. And we might also need some cutter and scissor, because we need to cut at least the drawing paper. When we make the book jacket, we need to cut it to size.
that's
It's good to have that. Okay.
good to have something which you can cut people to size also. Size reminds me of that. No,
This time we'll just cut paper to size and then use that as practice to cut the right people to size.
I think it's all first you have to look at yourself.
True, true.
Yeah. But thank you so much. This is
Most
lovely.
welcome. Great. So do practice and send me pictures on the group so we can have discussions. All right. Okay, I'm going to send you links to all 3 books, Alka's, mine, and Mruga's. Do have a look and try and purchase. They're really nice.
Aditi, one last question. When we do a course in Montessori, to teach young children, we start with cursive. Because they say that, cursive helps the wrist, the hand, and the whole movement is very, very interesting. And also for the brain, it's a good development. So do we never try that? the cursive, because it's such an old form of lettering, maybe. I don't know, but it's very like, it has a lot of movement in it of the wrist.
It does, it does. I am a great supporter of cursive. I find the new style of writing in print
Print
going
is
back, yeah, this is taking us back 2000 years. In fact, I was preparing for a lecture that I have to give next month. And if you see the progress, we have gone from writing beautiful cursive because writing in print in Gothic form was so cumbersome. And now we're going right back. And in fact, letters these days are looking as bad as proto-cuneiform from 3000 years ago. It is just, I don't know whether we're going in the right direction. So yeah, cursive is brilliant. I think all kids ought to be taught cursive, but I also feel that you need to teach them writing only after the age of 6. So in school, sometimes when they start too early, children are not dexterous. They just don't have enough strength in their hands. So they'll end up holding pencils in a very odd grip. And that ruins their dexterity for art, for writing. So if you can push it to when they're 6 years old, then they have enough to hold in a pincer grip. If not, I often recommend that you give them a much thicker grip. So then they hold it like that with the, you know what I mean? With a much, there are these rubber grips that you get. So you insert the pencil into that. So that allows them to hold the pencil like this. But very often under the age of 6, maybe around 4, they will grip everything with like an ape.
yeah.
So when they do that, even then, if you want to teach them to write, give them a big chalk and ask them to write on the ground. So nothing up there and nothing too small. So they need to write really big letters. I think that is healthy. So that's some place between getting them literate as soon as possible. I don't know why we have to do that. But secondly, also not to hamper their development of their fingers.
Right. Thank you, Aditi. And also, will you send me a list of the things that I need to get, like which pencil and all that?
I'll send you that list. All right.
Have a lovely weekend. Enjoy your travel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
I'll see you then in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Jana. Bye.
Bye, Archana.